don't know if you've noticed this. Pastors are staying longer at their churches. I used to look at pastoral tenure, and the typical pastor left between 3 and 4 years. In fact, typical would mean more than half of them had a tenure of only 3 or 4 years, and then they would leave. We're watching that change. We don't have the precise data. I hope we can get that for you in our research in the days ahead. But we can tell you strongly, anecdotally, that pastoral tenure is increasing. So if we know that to be the case, the obvious question is why? Welcome to the Church Answers podcast. I am happy you joined me. This is my solo podcast. My name is THOM Rainer. I'm the founder and the CEO of Church Answers. And I work alongside Belay. Belay Solutions has been our solution for productivity at Church Answers since we began. They have helped us to invest in remote staffing solutions. We've had remote workers, we've had virtual workers from Belay ever since we started. They can do the same for your church. They can free up your time. They can increase your productivity as a pastor or staff member. Check out Belay. You will be glad you did. Or if you're listening to us and you're a church member, you are part of a company. They work with secular companies as well. They have incredible workers, and we encourage you to find Belay and talk to them as well. Hey, they're offering a new ebook. The ebook is called The Power of Productivity. You'll like it. You'll need it. You'll want it. It's simple to get it. Text THOM at 55123. Just 55123. Then put in THOM and hit that send, and you will get your free download. It's a great ebook. You'll enjoy it. It has a lot of tips that can help you and assess you and help you identify where your productivity can improve. Okay, so let's get back to the question of the day. Why is pastoral tenure increasing, particularly since the pandemic? Why is pastoral tenure increasing, particularly since the pandemic? This first one is what we're hearing from a lot of pastors. The pandemic caused them to focus upon their call and why they were at a church and their future. And during this time, many of them had a sense that they were to have a longer call, that they were to stay at their church. So the first reason why pastoral tenure is increasing is pastors are telling us they just don't feel called to leave. They feel called to stay instead. And we've been hearing this more, and we've been hearing it frequently since the pandemic, and we're not seeing any abatement of it. It is more and more pastors are saying, I have a longer sense of call to my church than I ever thought I would. Now, most pastors don't go into church and say, I'm going to stay here 4 years and I'm gone. But many of them in the third or fourth year begin to wonder if God is moving them, nudging them to another church. They are not at this point. Many of them are not at this point. So they are deciding that God is calling them to stay. That's one reason. A second reason, and I got to be careful, but for my generation, the boomers, those born between 1946 and 1964, there's 76 million of us. There's a lot I don't like about my generation. We're largely self-centered, self-focused, and me, myself, and I are three first words of our vocabulary. The boomer pastors, I don't want to accuse all boomer pastors of this because I was a boomer pastor. I just want to say this was common for many boomer pastors and their predecessor generation, the builders, those born before 1946. The sense was that if you're really making it in the pastoral world, you'll go from one church to a larger church, to another larger church, to another larger church. And the sense of success is what the larger church you finally ended up. And for many, particularly in the 80s and 90s, and even going back to the 70s, if you made it to county seat, first church, then you had made it. Well, that's changing. The millennials, and we believe Gen Z coming after them and some of Gen X, they are not interested in climbing the ecclesiastical ladder. They're not interested in going to the next big church. The second big reason, there's a decreasing desire to climb the growth ladder. They love where they are. There's positive reasons, but they don't have any fulfillment with more numbers. They don't have any fulfillment with a larger sanctuary, a worship center. There's this decreasing desire to climb the growth ladder. Overall, I think that is a good thing. And that is a healthy reason why many pastors are staying at their churches. Now, there's a practical financial reason too. We call it the golden handcuffs. Golden handcuffs is a phrase that's used in the secular world, which means that they've got you financially tied there. Well, it's not the churches are paying so much. It is that many pastors bought their home when rates were low. I mean, some of them have a 3% mortgage, a 2.75% mortgage, and in today's environment, that is unbelievably low. And they bought their homes at a great value, and they've appreciated in value. So I talked to one pastor. I talked to a lot of pastors. You hear that from me every week. I talked to one pastor. He said, I looked at the numbers, and with the budget that the church was offering me to leave my church, it wasn't about just making a lot more money, but I would take a significant decrease in pay because I'd have to buy a more expensive house and I'd have a higher mortgage rate. The golden handcuffs that's causing many millennials to stay at their jobs, whether it's churches or otherwise, is lower mortgages and they can't afford the new price of homes. It just skyrocketed as a result of the pandemic. Maybe it slowed down a bit, but they're already at those high values. So the golden handcuffs, if you will, again, a secular phrase, the golden handcuffs are saying, many pastors said, I could not support my family if I moved and took on a new mortgage at a new interest rate. Now, these same pastors will say they get it. If God's calling, he'll provide a way. They're not denying that he won't, but God gives us a brain to think with. And if we see that this is going to be a significant cut, we have to say, is this what God really wants us to do? That's the third reason. Fourth reason. I love this about the millennials and Gen Z and a lot of Gen X. And for you boomer pastors who are my age, I'm not leaving you out. I know a lot of you feel this way too, but I particularly like it about the millennials and Gen Z. Many of these younger pastors, younger being 45 and under, I know that's not younger to a lot of people. Many of these younger pastors feel called to a community as well as a church. So they look at the community as a part of their calling, and they're not just called to the church, but they're called to the church, which has an address in a community. So they have a love and affinity and desire to minister to the community. And so it's not just a matter of leaving one single address. It's a matter of leaving an entire town or community. And that's part of their calling as well. I hear that more and more. I'm called to my church, but I'm called to the community in which my church is located. I think that's a very healthy. And if someone feels called to that and they're not leaving for that reason, well, more God power to them because they're staying for the right reasons. Okay, so this entire podcast was about pastoral tenure. Pastoral tenure used to be somewhere between 3 and 4 years on the average. I think it's edging above 5 years. I don't have the data to support it. So, you can say, Tom said, I think, and the next person would say, Tom said, and the next person said, it is universally known. I know how these things go. But I think, based upon anecdotal evidence, that the 10 years, 5 years or more, I won't be surprised if we continue to see this trend where pastoral tenure is increasing. The 4 reasons, once again, reason number 1, sense of a longer call, just God's calling me. Number 2, no desire to climb the ladder of success to a bigger church. Number 3, the financial reasons hold you to where you are because of your low mortgage and perhaps the value of the house that you would have to buy if you left. And number 4 is a call to a community, which I absolutely love. We'll continue to watch this. We'll continue to monitor this. Hopefully in the future, we'll have a more detailed quantitative research for you so we can say with certainty about the tenure of pastors at churches. But for now, we feel confident in saying it is increasing. We always thank Belay. Don't forget, Belay has a new eBook available for you, The Power of Productivity. Don't forget, if you have a need, you may not need to fill that with someone on staff. They take care of the hiring. They take care of all the back end work. They do it all for you. And so I just recommend Belay for all of your remote staffing solutions. And for you who are the listeners on your favorite podcasting app or at churchanswers.com, thank you. Give us a rating and review. If you're watching it YouTube, subscribe. Give us a rating there as well. Thank you for always being a part of the Church Answers podcast. Remember, we drop 3 of these every week. And if you haven't listened to watch the other 2, they're ready for you. We'll see you again. Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just two. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just two or three things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism and whether the church is doing it or not.
Bingo.
And then I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis?
Double bingo. Well. Maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.